Hey,
How's
Sean.
it going, Robin?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing super. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you got a better setup than me.
Yeah, this is. I know. I normally work out of like a local Starbucks, but of course, with COVID and everything, I was kind of grounded into a home office, and my wife, thankfully, took some time to help turn this into a little studio. So I'm
Nice.
actually
I'm in my
enjoying it.
home office of my dining room. I mean, I have 4-point lighting, which is nice, and I have a halfway decent mic, and I got my Bose headset, and I actually got I got one of those things too for my mic. It's up there.
Yeah, a little pop filter.
I
Yeah,
got a pop filter. I screw it right onto the dining room table right here. And I apologize. I'm still sweating. I just worked out outside, and I thought I'd cool off by now, but it's still scorching here.
Oh, no worries. Hey, I'm in Orlando, and it is nuts. I'm glad I'm a runner, and I'm glad Boston Marathon. I'm not glad. I mean, I trained for it, but the Boston Marathon was canceled for this year. So
Hey, so I used to do that kind of crazy stuff too. I did
Did you
marathons
really?
for a while, and then I did ultras.
oh my gosh,
Now I
50,
walk.
100-mile.
I did a
What?
bunch of 50s. Yeah, my wife wouldn't let me do the hundreds. She thought it was too dangerous.
Yeah, I told my wife because the last time I ran Boston was 1998. I collapsed
Good
at
for you.
mile 18.
Good for you
and
for actually qualifying. I could never even qualify.
I mean, but it was one of those things of, okay, now, at my age, 20 years later, I'm going, okay, I'm not getting any younger. I never finished Boston. Let's give it a shot. And so, went back, requalified, and then
That's
this
crazy.
whole thing.
So I remember, and this was I stopped doing crazy running in my early 40s because all of a sudden, it's funny, I was in the middle of an ultra. I had done I think 6 or 7 in 1 year.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And I mean, I wasn't blazing.
That's nuts, dude.
Yeah, it was just a lot of run. And it was funny because, my kids were small at the time. They're both out of the house now. And it was another Saturday. I think I was about 10 hours into this ultra. And I was just like, boy, how selfish is this? Saturday. I walked off the course. I was like, I'm done. I never did another one. And I walk now. I walk a lot. That's, because my knees, my right knee, I've had surgery years and years ago, and now it's just got arthritis. And so it swells up. Like right now, I walk every single day about 6 or 7 miles, and it can handle it.
Oh, that's great, though.
And then I do cross rope. That's what I was just doing before. I do
Yeah.
cross rope. Oh, is that me? Oh, it's in Florida. I don't know that. It's not you. So anyway, I digress. So yeah, I understand this whole running thing. So anyway, so the last time I did a marathon was the rock and roll marathon. Rock and roll marathon? It's down Virginia
Nashville?
Beach.
Oh, Virginia Beach. Okay.
Virginia Beach Shamrock Marathon.
Okay.
And it was perfect because it's March.
Yep.
And it's flat course, so the air's cool, flat course.
Oh my gosh.
I was in great shape for it, and I got like a 3:30 or 3:35.
Nice.
And it still wasn't qualifying for Boston.
Right.
Because I needed like a 3:11 or something.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm done. There's no going faster. I said, I'm done. We're not doing this anymore. This is I'm done.
That's funny. Well, I appreciate you taking time out today.
My pleasure.
This is a treat. Like I said, I had first heard you on Jordan Harbinger's show, and then
My buddy Jordan.
Ordered the book that day. What you cover in that book is just stuff that fascinates me. So I
Thanks.
Just really dug into it. Before we begin, I just wanted to make sure just on that I've got some of the details correct. So former F.B.I. Counterintelligence head of the behavioral analysis group, correct?
So yeah, retired after 21 years and counterintelligence the entire time. And became a team member on the behavioral analysis program for counterintelligence back in late 2001. And then I wound up taking over the team in like 2010 until 2013 because sequestration hit the government. They eliminated it, stupid, dramatic crap. And then actually for the last 5 years of my career, I stepped down out of management and I worked counterintelligence at the ground level again, 5 miles from home. So, I mean, I was all levels of counterintelligence, really exercising this stuff. Matter of fact, the couple examples in the book, especially the drone one, that happened like within the last year or two.
Wow.
So and it was right here in my town that I live and work in. So yeah, it's good stuff. And actually that guy, the drone guy himself, he's a great guy. I'm still great friends with him. He still calls me from work now and then. He put me through.
He just wasn't the best leader for that particular project.
Oh no, so the leader for the project, no, he's a moron.
Okay.
I gave him a lot more credit in the book than he actually should have had, because you got to be positive. But the guy, the source, the confidential human source that was helping us out, he's a great guy.
Okay.
What a great guy. His name's Jim. So anyway, I digress.
No worries. And so essentially, what you did was Criminal Minds. If you were to mix Criminal Minds
for counterintelligence,
putting those two shows together, or the counterintelligence aspect.
So the best way to kind of describe it is, I always say the FBI and all law enforcement got lots of behavioral programs.
Yeah.
And generally, behavioral programs are like profilers. And what profilers do, they look at their science and research and their experiences, and they come up with ideal resumes or profiles of unsubs, so they can try to find them. They sensitize themselves to titles and positions that people that commit, and so that's how they profile, so they can find something they don't know who they're going to talk to. My team, we generally dealt with normal psychology because the profilers generally doing abnormal psychology. So we're kind of the other half. And we 99.9% of the time always knew who we were going to talk to, because we were creating strategies for dialogue, strategies for recruitment, which is basically sales, false flag operations, double agent operations, interview strategies, espionage interviews, all these types of things, which, for what I started to understand was, wow, all this requires trust.
Yes.
And so I was just strategizing trust. And so where the book came from, so the Code of Trust, well, first book was, It's Not All About Me. No, my self-published one was 10 Techniques, Quick Reports, called It's Not All About Me. That was way back in 2010. From rapport, I realized that my team was strategizing trust. So that's where I came up with the Code of Trust. Okay. Then, because the Code of Trust really forces you to focus so much on another person, and the reason to focus on them is so you can understand them, so you can make this connection and have a good, strong relationship, because that's the basis for everything I do, is no manipulation, just good, strong, healthy relationships. I started realizing that, wow, human beings are exceptionally predictable. Because if you take time to understand how they see the world through their optic and how they define safety, security, and prosperity, they're always going to act in those interests.
Yes.
And so all I have to do is figure out how you define that, and I now know what you're going to do. And there you go.
and if you're able to predict, that helps you build trust, even if if their behavior is moral or not moral, or however you want to view
and judge it. Right. It's not for you to judge, and so this is all about understanding. I mean, I had to interview so many different people from so many different walks of life throughout the course of my career. And the whole point of my contact was to protect U.S. citizens domestically and abroad and protect national security.
Yeah.
If I go into an interview with a preconceived notion of who they are and who they are not compared to me, and judging them in any way, why would they want to talk to me?
Correct.
And so I built a lot of muscle memory around not judging, which is really hard for this ENTJ on the Myers-Briggs type A from the Northeast. I mean, I am born, bred, and genetically coded to judge everyone really, really harshly. Yeah. and so it was, so I replaced that judgmentalism with a lot of curiosity. Okay. I think that's really the bedrock of not, coming across in a negative way so that someone shields her up, demonstrate curiosity. And especially if someone is not like me, they're the most interesting, because how'd you decide to be that kind of person? I mean, what were your experiences?
Yeah. We have the mental map.
Yeah. We had a family member that, a close family friend for years and years that, after my wife and I got married, I mean, I was the best man at his wedding and he was at mine. And we go for Thanksgiving one year and found out that, they chose to have a different kind of lifestyle. And my wife's like, oh, just kind of blowing off. Oh, he's just joking with you. No, they decided to bring another woman into their family, and he had 2 wives. I was like, meanwhile, my wife's like, huh, who, huh, and I'm like, huh, how's that working? you want, what were you going for? I say, you share the same bed, not same bed. I mean, how does this work? Tell me the logistics, what do you get out of it? What does she get out of it? I mean, it's also just kind of curious to me because I've never seen this.
Yeah.
All right. Good for you. Because I was curious.
Yeah.
But my wife's freaking out.
That's great. Now, after you left the FBI, you've started your own consulting training company, People Formula.
Yeah, I've been doing that actually since 2009.
Okay.
So a good friend of mine, Joe Navarro, retired FBI guy, lives down there in Tampa.
I've heard that name. Is he somebody that's
very famous?
Rounds? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's an international expert for nonverbal behavior. Retired FBI guy, one of the founders of my team way back in the day. Okay. Anyway, he was always big on if you have important information that other people could benefit from, shame on you for not getting out to them. And so he encouraged me to write and publish. And as soon as I started writing and publishing on just articles for the Law Enforcement Bulletin, I started getting calls. And I was already at the training academy as I was teaching at Quantico. So I actually had a lot of experience teaching, up on stage and in front of groups. And so I was comfortable with it. And being in a position where you're forced to take that art form of interpersonal relationship and dialogue and make it a paint by number so you could share it with other people. And so it wasn't just anecdote and story, kind of like I write my books. I have anecdote and story, but then it's extremely granular on here's exactly what was going on. Yeah. And so it was kind of a really easy flow and fit. And so when I retired back in 2018, I just shifted from, part-time to full-time.
Full-time.
Although it kind of switched under COVID. I used to, my mainstay was in-person speeches, and keynotes and stuff like that. And that's completely been wiped out this year. So so now I just do my online training. Matter of fact, I'm about to release the Sizing People Up online training today.
Oh, I finally congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a lot of fun putting that online. I need to do better marketing and sales because it's such a great deal. It's it's only a couple $100. It's over an hour worth of training videos on each one of the signs. You get a behavioral analysis guide. So this guide is every one of the 6 signs and each one of the 10 positive tells and negative tells, and you got to go through it. As you're assessing someone you want to assess. Wow. Then you get the 13-page handout of all the notes that you should have taken throughout this thing, and then you get a coaching session afterwards. So, anyway, I digress.
No, that's awesome.
My me moments.
and because I was going through your website, and I noticed you had one online training program that was already up, and you had
got
one
2
that was coming soon.
Right. Okay, I got 2. I got 10 techniques, quick rapport there. Code of trust is there. Now Sizing People Up will be there later today. Then I'm going to do the my communication style inventory, which is basically my version of DISC assessment, and that'll be the 4. Okay. And then you can bundle, and if you take all, you actually get the coveted challenge coin, which I was going to give out at all my live engagements this year, but now I have 100 of these things.
I remember this this phrase by Zig Ziglar. He was the kind of sales guru, and he had this thing about people would say, "Yeah, I'll do it when I get around to it," and so he'd pull out this little round coin, go, "Well, here's a round to it for you." Time to get around to it and get going. I've got several questions for you implying your
I'll stop digressing on you. I'm sorry.
No worries. I'm geeking out, man. So no worries. Before we dive into applying the 6 signs to the hiring process, I'm just curious, what drew you to join the Counterintelligence behavioral analysis program? Like, what got you interested in that?
I failed everything else. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, I have to switch over to my other. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right, because my mic just died on me. It does it now and then. Give me 1 second to try to reboot it.
No worries.
Hello. There. No, we're back. Yeah, sometimes my mic does it on me. So I get asked that a lot. It's like, how did you take over that? That's so cool. That's my dream.
Or even not even taking it over, more of what
joining it
got you into that line. What was it that you were wanting to learn or get out of it?
I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
When I got to New York, I had no idea what I was going to do
Yeah.
because you don't get assigned anything prior to getting to your field office. And New
Yeah.
York was not my first choice, but I was glad I went there. And then at my first firearms training there, after only
Yeah.
a couple months, because you go through a training rotation, so you don't get
Yep.
assigned your permanent squad yet. I met a couple guys there. One of them saw I had a Marine Corps baseball hat on. And he says, "Oh, you former Marine?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, what squad you on?" I go, "I haven't been assigned yet." And he goes, "Oh, well, we work the Russian military intelligence, the GRU. It's a counterintelligence squad." And I go, "What the hell's that?" He goes, "Oh, here's what we do. We recruit spies, and everyone on the squad's former military. It's a great group of folks." And he said, "Why don't you petition to get on a squad?" And I'm like, "Okay." I did. And that was the squad had probably about 6 or 7 folks. Jesse Thorne, actually his real name's John,
Yeah.
was there,
And
and
Jesse was or John was your kind of
my
mentor.
Jedi Master, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a couple on the squad. These
Mhm.
people were so good, and we did so many operations. Everything was a recruitment operation.
Mhm.
The bad guys outnumber us about 4 or 5 to 1, so there's always opportunities to try to do something inventive. It's basically the entrepreneur's dream job because all you're doing is constantly creating operations.
Yeah.
And these guys are really good at it. So I got into it. And then someone on my floor wound up, because we do lots of operations, lots of squads. I mean, the whole floor works counterintelligence, all the different
Mhm.
countries that are our threats. And someone on squad next to me wound up having a behavioral assessment by the BAP team. And I got to sit in on it and watch this thing. I was like, "There's four folks came in. One was local already
Yeah.
because they're all adjunct, and they did this, they did this magic mojo where they created this strategy for what the case agent wanted to do
Yeah.
based on observations, behaviors, and all those things. I thought that was really cool. So I asked to have one on one of my cases. They came in and did one on my case. And I said, "How do I join the team?" They said, "Well, there's got to be a vacancy. There's got to be the right timing. We got to want you." And so about a couple years later, I was able to get on the team. So
That's
there you
awesome.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun because a very altruistic group. This group, the main purpose is these are regular case agents that have the full case loads on their own, and they volunteer. It's only so there's one leader, program manager /
Yeah.
chief,
Yeah.
and one assistant that run it from Quantico. Everyone else is adjunct out in the field. So these are
Out in the
real
field.
case agents still
Yeah.
working cases, and I had about 44 team members, about 5 operational psychs that were contract psychologists.
Yeah.
And so when a request came in, I would hand pick, and also see who was available, for whatever case it was based on their specialties and whatnot. And it was great because these are just volunteers that were here to help other case agents do their best to protect national security.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Great group of people. Probably the best group of people I've ever worked with in my entire life, hands
Yeah.
down. And that goes right into the HR part, the hiring part, how I got these people on the team. It was a process, and the most critical part of the process was the interview.
Yeah.
And actually, some of these signs are actually used in the interview.
Yeah. And I want to drill down into that. I'm going to kind of paint a scenario of what our audience would be encountering, and then you can kind of walk me through how you apply those signs in that interview process.
Sure.
So if you imagine, let's say I head up a fleet department where I'm responsible for an organization that has anywhere from 500 to 5,000 or 20,000 vehicles, equipment, and so forth that I'm responsible for.
Huge.
This equipment's got to be maintained very well because when power goes down, you can't have units going out, and so they've got to be safe because you're putting people next to power lines and so forth. So there's a lot of responsibility for this person, and they could be hiring a mechanic, a shop supervisor, be hiring a data analyst and evaluating how their equipment's performing or what they should be looking for in their acquisition, or they could be hiring a fleet operations person to work under them. And so here I am. I've uncovered a handful of candidates that look good on paper, but you don't really know these people. And so in that case, how can you tell who would be the best fit for the job, your team, and you? And how can you determine from a small number of interactions that you trust this person and can reasonably predict how they'll perform for you to improve, where you can look at that and to improve your odds of making a good hire in this situation.
So how many interactions do you have, and how long are they, and what type are they?
This is a hypothetical situation. So let's say you've already had, you've evaluated the resume. They look good on paper. Perhaps you've had one or two conversations beforehand, and now you've narrowed it down to a short list of candidates, maybe 2, 3.
All right. So what I'm looking for, so first is with the resume. What the resume should be doing is talking in terms of the priorities of the company and the position that they're going for. So, people that are really looking for the right job might have a lot of different resumes based on the different companies and positions they're going for. So one resume might not fit all. So if you're, say you're the type of person that has like 2 or 3 really good depth of field skill sets, but you're applying for a job that only requires the one, I might really just give a resume that's going to speak to that one, because one thing I'm always looking for, and this goes to language, because language is a sign that is demonstrating very rapidly, is this person talking in terms of me, or are they talking in terms of themselves? And so whether it's in the resume or whether in an interview and in an email, if they're going to demonstrate to me that they're looking to build a relationship, they're going to be seeking my thoughts and opinions, talk in terms of my priorities, the priorities of the job, the goals of the job, the mission of the company. They're going to validate the things they've heard, the things they've seen without judging it and have curiosity about it. And if appropriate, they can give some choices. It's like, hey, instead of hiring me full time, how about we give it a 90-day trial period? That way you can assess whether I'm a good fit for you or not. So if you're doing one of those 4 things and you're then having congruence with their nonverbal behavior that they're exhibiting, having high comfort with the things they're talking about, with eye elevation, smiling, head tilting, lots of open comfort. They're matching my tempo of speech and modulation. So they're not trying to rush, they're not trying to press, and they're also not trying to slow it down. They're trying to match really well. And most importantly, I think, is that they are willing and able to show full transparency in areas that you might question. Like if you want to explore a certain aspect of the resume, if you want to explore a certain aspect of themselves, like one of my favorite questions I'd ask my team members that I was interviewing for coming on the team was really simple. Tell me about 1 or 2 or 3 of your strengths. And what I want to hear is the strengths in terms of the priorities of the company, of the job you're going to have. In other words, share why you're going to be awesome for me. And then the really critical one is when I ask you, tell me about some of your challenges that you have and some of your weaknesses. I want transparency and I want openness, and I want to hear what those weaknesses are, and I want to hear what you're doing about it. In other words, if someone has the ability to put their shields down and be able to share openly about what their personal challenges are, but actually because they're so self-aware, I've put in place X, Y, and Z. Me, I am a self-centered narcissist. That's why I've written 3 books on how not to be a narcissist. These are my manuals on how not to be the moron I was born to be, so I could build this muscle memory up so I could stop focusing on myself and learn how to focus on you. So that's what I was looking for, because that then goes into stability, because that's a demonstration of stability.
Yeah, and it sounds to me the way you walked me through it is you walked me through each sign, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Okay. Well, I didn't have
for
to
the most part.
Yeah, I didn't have to go through longevity. I didn't have to go through vesting. Although,
but you did go through vesting, because you talked. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, because you talked about are they talking in a way relative to my interests,
right?
And to me, that's vesting. Correct?
Yeah, it definitely overlaps. Absolutely.
And then longevity, that's kind of hard to tell because you don't have enough data point there. But if they are vested, it almost dovetails that they're going to be.
A quick question can help on longevity, though. It's like where you see yourself in 5 years.
Okay.
What's your 5-year plan? And if I hear that you want to grab the resume here to move on to something else, or you're not quite sure, saying you're not quite sure is the kind of person that might not have a huge lot of self-awareness, or they're hiding the fact that they do want to move on to something else. But if they say, hey, you know what? I'm keeping my options open as of today. I'm liking what I'm seeing here. And so I will see how far it goes. I'd like to see, because this is feeling great, and if you like me and you see value in what I'm able to provide you, and I'm able to, provide for my family and a prosperous future,
Yeah.
who says how far it won't go? So that's
Yeah.
a good conversation about longevity.
That makes a lot of sense. And then the other signs, heard you talked about language, number 5, and stability, number 6, the reliability and actions.
Right.
How do you do that when you've got a limited amount of interactions?
So what you're going to do for that is you're going to really look at the resume, and you're going to look for references that you can follow up on the resume. And if there's no references listed on the resume, when you contact the individual, ask for references that can verify your resume. And again, what I should hear is transparency. I should say, oh yeah, you can talk to so-and-so, you can talk to so-and-so, or they'll be transparent. But listen, I've only had one other job. I haven't worked in this field before. I've worked in this field. My last job didn't go so well for this guy, but feel free to contact him. He'll probably say a lot of crap about me because of this situation. Mm-hmm. And that's fine too, because you know what you're being? Transparent.
Right.
And then I can say, all right, so the last one went sideways. What did you learn from that situation? And what would you do differently this time? What was your role in that when went sideways? And so when someone says, well, you can't talk to someone because they don't like me. All right, no problem. What was your role in them not liking you? Because now we're going to go again to that stability sign and actions. Yeah. Are they sharing that? Hey, because remember, we all play a role when things go sideways.
Yep.
And so I want to again, I'm not saying these are disqualifiers. It's just giving you a really good, honest baseline of what you're going to deal with. Because if they're not open enough on the interview, what's the likelihood they're not going to be open later on? Pretty high.
Now, how do you trust but verify on the sources, not sources, the people that you can call and check on whether or not they references? How do you keep those from being BS?
So I'm looking for exactly the same thing I was looking for from this individual. I'm looking for transparency. I'm looking for free flow. I'm looking for direct, quick answers to questions. I'm asking questions that might not be, relevant to what was on the resume. Like you and me when we kicked off. I mean, we immediately found a common ground and we flowed. Yeah. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, is this person uptight about talking to me, or are they comfortable? So again, I'm looking for high comfort signs, and I'm looking for good positive language. And even if it's a negative reference they have, are they, can they laugh and joke about it? Can they be open about their experiences? And also what's really interesting too is you'll be able to judge their stability, because if this person gets emotionally hijacked when talking about the individual that you're potentially hiring, you can kind of see, all right, so this guy was probably challenged to work with or work for because he's shown some mental instability when dealing with this individual. So he's got insecurity. So it kind of helps you rate how well, either take it with a grain of salt, or this guy's actually got a lot of self-awareness and he seems to be really knowing what he's doing. So I might want to listen to his reference a little harder,
Now, with the 6 signs, are they interdependent in the sense of, if you would imagine 6 spokes to a wheel, and if one of them is weak or warped, it will cause the whole wheel to warp or give a rough ride? Or can you kind of like, hey, this person checks 4 out of the 6 boxes, strong enough?
I would say blind spots are easy and common. In other words, so what I'm looking for at least having some positive tells in 1 or 2 signs. And that's pretty good, because it takes some time to get data points. And now if I'm starting to have negative tells pop up for some of the signs, that's a real warning. It's, in other words, I'm a trusting person. And so as a trusting person, I know I'm going to have blind spots, in a couple small interactions. But what I'm at least looking for is some positive tells in 1 or 2. If I have positive tells in 3 or 4, that's golden. But if I start having negative tells in one or two signs, that's a red flag, because you, especially during the interview and hiring process, when they should be putting their best foot forward, and you know exactly what it is you're looking for in these signs,
Yeah.
and you're starting to see negative ones pop up, I'd give it another look. I would definitely give it that serious look, and I'd probably go harder on references at that point. Yeah. So
Now you mentioned you're a trusting person, and Malcolm Gladwell in his last book, um, Talking to Strangers, he talked about this idea of default to trust. So he used examples of you, you know this double agent from Cuba who totally deceived everybody
yep,
in
know
the
that one.
CIA.
Yep.
Nobody saw those signs, and so how do you keep yourself in check, and thus, our readers putting them in that type of position? How can they keep themselves in check to question when these red flags come up versus the defaulting to trust?
So defaulting to trust just means that, all right, I don't have enough data points to be negative. and
Okay.
so if I don't know anything, I'm going to say, all right, more than likely I can trust you. And trust
Okay.
just means I can predict that you're going to act in your own best interest. I don't know what you just think those best interests are yet.
Okay.
And so now what I'm doing is on these first contacts, and every contact, I actually was asked this during a book club I recently did. I'm constantly baselining. The reason for me having this behavioral analysis guide is because I'm going to mark down how I see you on each of the tells. So, say I'm interviewing someone and I have sign 4 here, actions, and I'm going through the 10 tells for actions. If I see one, I'll put a check mark, and I have to put an example of that I saw. Just so it's not just anecdotal. It's like you actually have an example. Now, over a period of time, like once a week or once a month, or even after every interaction, if you don't see people all that often, pull out your form, pull out your checklist, and say, how are we looking today?
Yeah.
What's changed? Has things gotten better? And have I seen more signs of positive tells for trust, or am I starting to see negative signs here? And so you'll be able to start seeing trends. Is this getting better, getting worse? And so if it starts going a little sideways and you're starting to see some negative tells, now as a leader, as a manager, you have an ability to address it. Say, listen, last time we got together, I noticed this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Tell me, well, normally when I see you, your performance is this, you're exceptional in all these great things. What's happening? What's going sideways for you? And what can I do to make it better? So you poke at it before it's a problem.
Got it.
Because you've baselined it. The greatest, I'd say, I worked all these espionage cases and, all the internal spies we've had inside the U.S. government. And it always came down to, if they could create a checklist to figure out, who's a spy, we wouldn't have any spies, because you just use a checklist. It's BS. It doesn't work. But what they always found, though, is that those leaders above them noted something was different.
Right.
But they brushed it off to the side. They didn't do anything about it. So I always say the way to prevent an insider threat, whether it's threat of violence or someone stealing proprietary information or just being disgruntled employee that's going to ruin everyone else's day, is leadership. Make a place where they don't want to behave that way. And how do you do that? Well, you're going to make sure that you're using your language. You're going to seek their thoughts and opinions, value them, validate them, talk in terms of their priorities, and give them choices. So when you're doing that, you're demonstrating that you value them, that you want to affiliate with them. And so when you're paying attention then to these 6 signs and everyone that is directly under you, you know when someone's going sideways, and you can really focus on it and make it your leadership challenge to take care of it before it actually becomes that problem that you have to fire.
Got it. So it's almost like a human version of an exception report. You start seeing exceptions that trigger red flags that maybe you need to start paying attention to.
I call it tremors in the force.
Yeah, that's an excellent analogy. Now,
on me again, one sec.
You bet.
Plug it in again, see if it comes back. All right. It's weird how it does that.
That's nuts. Now, in some situations, because the whole idea here is to understand what that person believes to be in their own best interest, and
Yep.
and help kind of connect with that. But what about those times where, especially in potential employer relationships, where they're interviewing for a job and you're interviewing them, that they might want to hide their true motives? Why would you, what is it that you want to work? Why do you want to work with this company? And they could come up with the best vested answer because they understand that's how you go get a job, but they're really hiding their true intentions. How do you suss that out?
You can, you can ask it like 2 or 3 times throughout the course of the interview to see if it changes at all.
What kind of question?
It's like, I still think the best thing to do, and I literally worked with a company about a week ago that I like this question, because they say, how do I be able to tell, what someone's investment strategy is? Because they don't want to disclose their investment strategy, which is very similar to this, like where they see themselves in 5 years or whatnot. They know what to say for the guy. And I said, well, ask them a discovery question, where you can discover one of their priorities. And that is, I said, well, why don't you ask them, hey, why don't you tell me about one of your most satisfying times you've ever had investing? And why was it satisfying for you? What was your most exciting thing you've ever done? And if the guy talks about how he bought bonds and really loved it, now you know his strategy, as opposed to a guy that is actually, investing in, in emerging markets in Western Europe or something like that. It's a whole different answer. And so the same thing, you can ask this person, instead of the canned, question about, it's going to get a canned answer, just I love putting the way back questions in there, because when you start getting way back questions, it's really hard to make shit up. And if it does, it'll start being incongruent, not making sense. Like, so tell me about a great job experience, and what happened and why you liked it the most. And tell me about a negative job experience and what you didn't like about it. Those kind of questions are going to really, it's hard to make that up on the fly.
Got it. And they're kind of putting down their defenses as well, I would imagine, the way you're proposing the questions.
Yeah, and also gives you the ability to bond on it as well, because who hasn't had a negative experience? And you can do, I had a similar experience as well. I found mine pretty traumatic. I learned a great deal from it. Did you find the same in your situation? Oh, you did learn something. What kind of things did you learn? What would you do differently? Again, and then what am I sussing out there? Self-awareness. Again, I'm always going back to that amount of emotional stability that they have and emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Anything that we haven't covered today that you think would be really important for our audience to know about as they're, in that hiring process?
I think just remembering that forming trust and forming relationships is so much more important than a skill. Anyone can learn a skill. But if you don't have the ability to have good, healthy working relationships and professional relationships with people, the skills won't even matter, because they're just going to be a cancer in wherever they go. So I would really focus on the individuals that I would definitely hire someone that has the ability to be a good professional relationship builder in my organization, that might not have all the skill sets, because I can get them training. And training's a lot cheaper than replacing them. So I'm always going to edge on the side of, I'm going to go with someone that's good and healthy and stable, that is transparent and is willing to do what it takes to support me and support the company and support the mission. Those are the things I'm going for. If they got skills too, that's fantastic.
Yeah. That's the added plus there.
Yeah.
Now, I really appreciate you taking time today and sharing your expertise with our audience. This is a geek out moment for me. I've learned a lot,
too.
and I know our audience will get a lot out of it. Just so you know of what to expect, as a standard operating procedure, I like to make sure that the quotes I put together are accurate for our readers.
Sure.
So once I've got an edited version of the article, I'll be sending it to you to do a quick review. Just make sure, that the quotes are accurate, that I've captured them accurately. And all I ask in that is if you could turn it around in like a 24-hour period, if that works for you.
You bet. And if for some reason It slips by me. Give me a poke. Have no fear to give me a poke.
Will do.
Yep.
And a couple other things. If you could send me a high res version of your headshot, which will include, and a high res version of your book cover art for sizing people up.
Sure.
And we'll
do me a favor.
Well.
Send me an email prompt for that.
I will.
That way it hits my my whole tickler list, because I got a whiteboard on. I see your whiteboard. I got a whiteboard right back there, and I got everything on the days. And if it goes on the whiteboard, I'll make sure. I used to try to keep notebooks, but I just don't keep looking at them so much. When that thing's just staring at me, it's easier. So, and that way, also put on there that you want my telephone number. And that's only because if you need to send me a text, if I'm late on you for something, you can poke me. So I have no problem. Because I'm normally really, really, really good about that, but you never know. And I don't want to screw you over in any way whatsoever.
No, I appreciate it. And I will. I'll put those items in a follow-up email, and look forward to putting together this article. Thank you so much.
How did you get into doing this? I never heard of this magazine, but what
Utility Fleet Professional magazine. Yeah, it's a crazy, it's kind of a crazy thing, because I'm not a full-time employee with them. I have my own communications consulting company, and out of that they hire me to head up their editorial.
So cool.
I do their content strategy and do some of the high-level articles and so forth. But I got into this industry because of a failure. I mean, I had a .com. I had a .com startup in the late 90s. Raised angel investment and everything else for it. And when the NASDAQ crashed in 2001, just like everything else did, that .com was a .bomb, and I need to figure out, with two young daughters and, my wife and everything, I need to figure out.
How old are your kids now?
They are, one is graduating this week from the University of Florida. She's 22, and the other's a incoming junior at the University of Florida. She's 20. So, and the oldest is getting married in December. So,
wow, that's so cool.
What about you?
Yeah, so my son's a junior at the Naval Academy.
Oh,
wow. And and he's still in line to be a pilot. And matter of fact, he's much better than me. And
but you went to Naval Academy as well, right?
So, yeah, barely got in, barely got out. And he's a mechanical engineer with a 4.0. He's rocking
man.
It.
Wow.
And my daughter just graduated George Mason University, and she's a nurse. So she's a labor and delivery nurse up at Holy Cross Hospital, Maryland.
Oh, that's great. My wife's a nurse. She was in NICU until about 3 weeks ago, and now she's in research. But
oh, good. Jeez. Yeah.
Bless those healthcare workers.
Yeah, no kidding. And bless my daughter, who decided to do that when all of her friends that majored in drama are not working, because all the drama people, they used to work at the restaurants to support them, and they're all closed out.
Yeah, totally get it. And just to close the loop on how I got into this, I was I had to make a living, and I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, Ken, I had to switch over to my laptop. I gave up on the mic again.
No worries. So I took a job at a car dealership, and it's a GMC dealership outside Atlanta. And about a year into it, I went to the management. I said, "Look, I appreciate you guys spend all this money on advertising and everything, but I've got experience working with business owners, and gosh, 95% of them don't want to step foot on a dealership. Why don't we bring the dealership out to the business owners, for their company vehicles, for their personal vehicles, and so forth?" So I wrote a business plan to do that, outside sales, and built a nice kind of like little business within the dealership, and did that that's what got me in kind of the trucking transportation realm.
So cool.
Did that until 2008, when the economy crashed and GM got out of the medium duty truck business. And I was writing on the side. I was writing for like Work Truck Magazine, Automotive Fleet Magazine. And it's like, hell, my income just dropped about 90%. I have nothing to lose. I told my wife, I said, I'm generating some income here. I'll just go full time. And so been doing that.
That's what I'm trying to do too. I lost everything this year.
I can't imagine, because everything you're doing all these speaking engagements, on-site training, and
I am the god of pro bono right now because no one wants to pay for webinars, and so like I was like, what can you barter for me? Can you give me a shout out? Try to do up sales for me, something. Help a brother out.
yeah. I hear you, and that I'll do everything on my end, kind of get the word out, because like I said, I've gotten a ton out of your book.
Thank you so much.
Fascinated with the work that you do, and just appreciate you putting that out there in the world, because I've partnered on books, and just each book is a Herculean task to put together.
That thing was about 3.5 years.
Yeah. So
it's good stuff. I appreciate it though. I really do.
Well, appreciate you, and I'll be circling back. I'll send you a follow-up email, and then in the next few minutes. But I'll be circling back in the next couple weeks once I've got an edited version. So thank you so much.
You too.
All right, now
stay safe down there. Bye bye.
Bye bye.